Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Candice Fox, and welcome to Dymocks Chapter 1. I am here to talk to you about all things me and my latest novel, Gathering Dark. And thank you so much for joining me here tonight to chat about this novel. I have a 10-month-old baby, so for me, it's 8 o'clock. It's the middle of the night. We're here and we're staying up late with Candice Fox. So thanks for coming along. Now I'm going to chat to you for a half an hour, and then you have time to ask me questions about the novel, about me, about writing, whatever it is that you would like to know. So Gathering Dark is the 13th novel of my own, and some novels I write with James Patterson. It's not necessarily the start of a new series, but I'm open to it being a new series, but it is not connected to any of my previous work, either my solo work or my work with Jim. So it is the story of 4 very unconventional women working together to solve a crime. And what I like to do when I write novels is I like to put people together who shouldn't necessarily be working together. So these 4 women, some of them are ex-cons. One of them is a cop, and basically the novel starts with a woman named Blair Harbour. She was, having the perfect life. She was living in Brentwood in Los Angeles. She was, a pediatric surgeon, very well regarded. And one night, for reasons you'll have to find out by reading the novel, she went next door and murdered her neighbour. So Blair has done 10 years for that. She's out now. She's trying to live a straight life. And her ex-cellmate, a woman named Sneak, comes to her and says, "My daughter is missing. Can you please help me?" Now Blair is trying to go back and back to the person that she was, before she was incarcerated. She's trying to demonstrate, to herself and to the world that she's a good person. So even though she doesn't know anything about finding a missing girl, she goes, on this quest, I suppose, with her friend. She gets up her friend to find her missing daughter. Look at all these people that are popping up here. People, I can see Ken Malpass, from Tari. I know Ken. How you going? We've got North Fremantle here. We've got Canberra. This is great. So we've got these 2 women in the novel. They recruit the amazing Ada Maverick, who, she was so much fun to write. Ada. She is a very dangerous, a very scary woman who owns a strip club in LA. She has henchmen. She likes burying people in the desert up to their necks, this kind of thing. She's pretty dangerous. So she's number 3 in the team. And the ladies find out pretty quickly that they do actually need police assistance. So the person, helping them out is Jessica Sanchez. She's on the outs with the LAPD because she's just inherited a $7 million mansion, which has sort of set her aside from her colleagues. People aren't very happy with her. So why did I set this novel in LA? That is the question that I'm getting, because a lot of my work previously has been from Australia, so I never like to write about anywhere that I haven't lived. So I went to LA and I lived there for a year. My husband and I were just kind of wanting to spend some time abroad, and before we settled down and bought a house and had a baby and do all the stuff we've done since. I know you're thinking, like, if you go abroad for a year, like our friends did, you go somewhere like Italy or France or, some, like, why LA? And it's because, we love LA. LA is so crimey, we found it to be immediately crimey. And as soon as we, stepped off the plane, and it ended up being somewhere that was so crummy, I thought I just need to write about this place. So Tim and I arrive in LA, and I can see people asking questions. Just to let you know, I'll answer some questions at the end, but that's a good question there from Nicole Rolson. How did you start writing with James Patterson? I will answer that. So Tim and I were in LA, and we were heading towards the Strip, where Chinese theatre and all that sort of stuff is in West Hollywood. We wanted to see, Hollywood, And we get out of the car. We parked a couple of streets away from the Strip. And on the Strip, it's really bright, and the neon lights and the billboards and the mega stars, with the stars on the sidewalk and all that kind of stuff. But the streets leading up to there are like really, really dark, like pitch black, scary dark. We get out of the car, we're walking along, and this guy comes out, from behind like this diamond wire fence, and he's got no shirt on, this big fat guy, and he's got tattoos all over, and he goes, "Rah!" like that. And we were like, oh man, let's change to the other side of the street. This is dangerous. So we're going along the other side of the street, and we see up ahead, this guy is twirling down the street on a desk chair, like the one I'm sitting in right now. And he's lying back in the desk chair, and he's just rolling down the street, not looking where he's going, like going clunk over the gravel and then clunk back up again off the road. It was like, this is wild, And there were men standing in alleyways in groups, and kind of looking out, and it just felt dangerous. It felt scary. And then we popped out onto the Strip, and there were all the lights and all the people, and somebody's dressed up like Buzz Lightyear and doing backflips for the crowd and this kind of thing. And that's when I was starting to get the sense that Los Angeles is somewhere that things that don't belong fit together here. They're right next to each other. You're driving down Sunset Boulevard, and there's an enormous billboard, and it's Jennifer Lopez, with an amazing watch on, and her skin is perfect, and she's so beautiful, and this watch costs like $30,000, and underneath that billboard are all of these homeless people who have created this enormous encampment, and they've strung up all these tarps and this kind of thing, and they're using the bathroom in like a bucket, and it's all mud and stuff everywhere, and there's this extreme opulence right next to this extreme poverty, right next to each other. It's just inspiring. Like there's this darkness right next to this brightness, and they're shoulder to shoulder, and somehow they've fit together in this amazing wild town. Going to the US, I said to Tim, I have 3 goals for being in America. I've got a year to complete them. So I want to call 911, and I want to shout, somebody call 911, like they do in the movies. And I said, I want to get pulled over by like a highway sheriff in the tan outfit with the hat and the aviators, and when he comes to the window, I want to say, I want to roll the window down and be like, what seems to be the problem, officer? I was like, I have to do that, like I have this one chance. And I had all 3 of those things done in 6 months. It was just amazing. It was so great. So we were driving along. I don't remember where we were, but it was like a dusty, hazy, Sunday afternoon. I remember it was a Sunday in Los Angeles, and the sun was going down, and everything's just like red, like tomato red sky. And this woman popped out into this intersection, like she walked right out in the intersection in front of us, a homeless lady, and she's wearing this brown dress, I remember, and she had a hammer in each hand, and she was like swinging the hammers like this and yelling at people like, no, you get out of my way, and there was no one around her. So she was talking to people who weren't there. And I said to Tim, this isn't good. Like he had to drive around her, and I said, I think we better call 911. And so we did. I called her. I was like, I dialed it. I was like 911. Oh my God. And I got on the phone and I said that I explained the situation of this woman swinging these hammers around. And the lady on the operator, she goes, has she actually heard anyone yet? And I said, no, but I feel as though, like, it's imminent. And she goes, oh, I'll send a car. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you think that is the most dangerous thing that's happening in Los Angeles right now, then you're obviously a tourist. I had put her out by calling her and putting this on her books as the 911 operator. For me, if that was happening in Australia, that is like triple O stations. There would be helicopters flying over. It was just extreme. So in a separate incident, okay, I got to hear, I got to shout out, somebody call 911. We were living in the Hollywood Hills on Woodrow Wilson, which is like this is a street that I've only ever heard of in movies. You got Mulholland Drive and all that kind of stuff up there. And we rented a cantilever house because we were trying to pretend that we were Bosch, and we're listening to jazz and looking at the lights and that kind of thing. And so we're sitting there at home one night, and there was an explosion out the front somewhere. And we're like, oh my God. So we dropped everything, we ran out. And all the neighbors ran out of their houses too. And we could see coming out of this house, all of this smoke just pouring out of this, very, very small house, a house that really didn't belong there. You got these amazing big mansions, just down the street for us was Justin Timberlake's house and all this stuff, houses that have been there like, since Charlie Manson type of days and that kind of thing. And, so we're all standing out the front there, and I don't have my phone, and nobody else has got their phone. We're all standing there, and I said, somebody call 911. I was like, yes. So it turned out that this tiny little house nestled in there where it didn't belong was actually a hoarder house. It was all hoarded out inside. And I only know this because I stood around there. I was like, I am the writer in the mix. I need to know the end of the story. I need to know everything that's happened. So the fire brigade came and they busted in, and I just stood there at the end of the driveway because I was like, I want to know. I want to know what's happened. So it turned out that there was a bunch of spray paint cans that the person had hoarded, and they were right next to the pilot light of the oven, and they'd exploded. It wasn't smoke, it was spray paint mist. And the chief of the fire brigade, I'm sure they don't call it a brigade, but he says, I asked him all about him. I'm chatting to him and all that kind of stuff, and I'm getting really nosy, really, really nosy. And he says, I don't want to start any rumors around this neighborhood, but that guy's got a lot of dolls in there, and they're all naked. I was like, who can I tell? Everyone's going inside. So hilarious and weird. And yes, the third story of my America goals isn't as exciting as the first two, because somebody did pull me over. A sheriff pulled me over. I was going to Arizona for an event, actually. So I was technically on a business trip. And yes, fire department. Yes, you get it. Anyway, I was on a business trip. I was going to Arizona, and I was speeding, and a policeman pulled me over, and he did have the sheriff's hat and the aviators. And he got out of his car, and he was very scary looking, and he was jangling. Like, he had chains and keys and guns and stuff, and he was jangling all the way up to my window, and just watching him approach in the rearview mirror, I got a bit scared. So when he got there, and my husband is sitting in the passenger seat saying, you going to say it? Are you going to say it? And I'm like, yeah. And so when he got there, I rolled down the window and I said, what seems to be the problem, officer? And he said, you were speeding. I was like, I know, I just wanted to say it. I just wanted to say what seems to be the problem, officer. He was like, oh, tourists. So yes, so I had an amazing time in America, and it influenced this book. It influenced this book in many ways. Just, because these women, they're wild and untamed and unpredictable, and they have incredibly contradictory sort of places within themselves. They are at once very brave and strong and hard women, the way that LA can be, I suppose. And they're also very soft and gentle and lovely. People say to you that LA is a very scary city and people are rude there. And it's a bit of an international port to America, so you get all types coming in and out. And it's also the city of like broken dreams, because people go there to fulfill their dreams of becoming actors or whatever, and they just get stomped on because not everyone can make it, I suppose. And so it's a city of failed dreams. But I found the people of Los Angeles to be lovely, and it could be that's because a lot of the time I was hanging out with bartenders in bars, and of course they're going to be nice to you because they want you to keep drinking. We were actually invited to the personal family Thanksgiving of 3 different bartenders at 3 different bars, which goes to show exactly how much drinking we did, because we were getting friendly with the bartenders, and we were chatting and telling our life stories, and they were telling their stories, and so yeah, we got invited to 3 different Thanksgivings. So so we went dry for a week after that. So there's a character in Gathering Dark who is influenced by my interaction with a serial killer. I spent some time with a serial killer named Lawrence Bittaker while I was in Los Angeles. So how did that come about? I was watching a documentary one day, and I interact a lot with true crime because I'm a crime writer. I need inspiration. I need facts. So was watching a documentary on Lawrence and his partner, and the 5 murders that they committed against young ladies in Los Angeles in the late 60s. And I just thought, this is the most horrific thing I've ever heard of in my life. And I have some questions for this man. So I said to Tim, I'm going to write to Lawrence Bittaker. He is on death row in San Quentin, which is up in San Francisco. So that's an hour and a half flight. And I want to ask him if I can come visit. And Tim was like, yeah, that sounds like something that you would do. That's very you. You're going to have fun. Enjoy. I'll stay here. It's not really my thing. He's very supportive. So that's exactly what happened. I wrote to him and I said, I want to speak to you. I want to ask you some questions. And he said, yeah, sure, come along. We probably exchanged about 10 letters before we met in person. And I went to San Quentin, and that was a really weird experience in that I was not prepared for it at all, really. The prison officials send you a single A4 sheet of paper to prepare you for this visit, and it really does not have any helpful information on it. It says, these are the colors and types of fabric that you cannot wear when you go to the prison. So you can't wear denim, for example, because the inmates wear denim, and if there's a riot, the watchtower guys are going to want to know who to shoot. You can't wear tan and yellow because the staff wear those colors. So basically there's all these different restrictions. You can't wear underwire in your bra because that's going to set off the X-ray machine. You have to be X-rayed on your way in, and this kind of stuff. And it helpfully notes this piece of paper, which they call the Visitors Handbook. It's not actually a book; it's a piece of paper, but okay. It says that if an inmate takes you hostage, the prison officials will not negotiate for you, which is very encouraging. So it's kind of like, don't get together with the inmate that you're visiting and fake a hostage situation to get them out, because we will not play that game, kind of thing. So I went and I got through all the different levels of security. I was wearing the wrong thing, so I had to change. And then there was all this kerfuffle over what I could bring in and what I couldn't bring in. I had tried to bring in some maps because Lawrence had talked about showing me on maps some of the areas where he had disposed of the remains of some of his victims that were never found. So there was this back and forth about that. And I got past the watchtowers and the fences and the guards and all that kind of thing. And I got all the way to death row. They said, follow this yellow line and you'll walk all the way through the prison and you'll get to death row. And then I went through this big iron gate, this big iron door to death row, and it slammed shut. You know, like just like in the movies, it goes clang. And I wasn't ready for it. And I went, ee! And I was like, I'm really being brave here. This is going great. So I said to the and then I'm just standing there. Nobody's helping me. And I said to the guard, I'm here to see Lawrence Bittaker. And he said, oh yeah, he's going to be in that cage over there. And he points to this cage. It's like a 2 meter by 2 meter shark cage. It goes floor to ceiling, steel mesh with gaps like that in it. And up to shoulder height, it's bulletproof glass. And I said, oh, okay, he's going to be in there. All right, where am I going to be? And the guard said, in there, like this. He's like, he didn't know you were going to be. He didn't say it, but he was like, in there. And I was like, in there at the same time, because I had imagined there would be glass or a video link, something. But and at this point, I didn't say, I'm uncomfortable with this. This makes me feel unsafe. I'm scared for my life right now, because I didn't want to be rude, which is really weird when you think about it. So they brought the serial killer out and they put him in the cage and they uncuffed him and they said, all right, Candice, get in. And I didn't want to be rude to the serial killer. So I got in and they padlocked the door and the guard walked away. And I was like, well, this is how I die. This is, strangely fitting for a crime writer. This is going to make a great New York Times article, maybe, but I'll be dead, so that doesn't help. And yeah, I have never had the occasion of having to fight a man for my life. So I'm sitting there thinking, if I have to do this right now, like how do I fight a man? And it was stupid because my brain went, just scratch him, shh, like go for the face and go shh like that, which is not what you're supposed to do. If you ask Jack Reacher what you're supposed to do, he would not say that. He would not say scratch them in the face. How did Lawrence influence this book? I sort of expected, meeting a serial killer, that he would be like Hannibal Lecter type, very proud and assured of what he had done. Like Hannibal Lecter's like, no, I ate his liver with some Chianti, and some fava beans and all this. But Lawrence was a sad, pathetic old man who just would not take any responsibility for what he had done. He had a 1,000 excuses for his actions. He had a terrible childhood, and it was all the other guy's fault. It was all the other guy's idea. He didn't really do any of it. He sort of just stood by, and he his mother didn't love him. His mother gave him up, and he was raised by his grandparents. And they didn't teach him any empathy and all this sort of stuff. And it was a 5-hour visit, which I didn't actually know was going to happen either. I didn't know that I classified for the extended visit. But in those 5 hours, I could not pin him down to sort of saying this, you chose to do this and this was awful. And, it was like trying to nail jelly to the wall. So I have written a character sort of inspired by Lawrence, not as awful as Lawrence, but inspired by Lawrence in his sort of narcissism and that kind of thing. He was a very narcissistic man. He's a 77-year-old serial killer. And he's sitting there trying to tell me, about all his girlfriends that he has. He has a girlfriend in Ireland. He has a girlfriend in New York. He has a girlfriend in California that visit him. And he can see his reflection in the bulletproof glass, like just by my face. And he kept looking at his own reflection and like doing his hair. And I was like, can you just focus? You know what I mean? People are saying 5 hours, yes. Yeah, I thought it was going to be 1 or 2. And that's what I told my husband. And so after 1 to 2 hours of not hearing from me, Tim was Googling like San Quentin riot, San Quentin, Candice Fox death, this kind of thing. No, so if you are visiting an inmate in San Quentin and you have come from more than 50 miles away, then you get. But that's the thing about it. Like, I had to go to the bathroom sometimes. And so you have to call the guards over, and they cuff him and they let me out and they lock the door again. And then they come and they unlock the door and they put the cuffs on him, and all this awkward kind of stuff happened. And then, when I was leaving, I was like, how do I say thanks for talking to me? And he had said to me, so am I the monster that you thought I was? And I said no, only because I didn't want him to stop talking to me. He asked me pretty early, and I didn't want to offend him. But in a way, he actually wasn't the monster that I thought he was going to be. He was far less overt a monster than I thought. The whole experience of meeting him reminded me of, when you go to the zoo and you go to the crocodile enclosure and you just see like a lake, brown water, and you're like, where is the crocodile? Like, is it even here? And then you just see like one bubble come up and you're like, oh yeah, it's under there. And it's not very deep either. And, I get the feeling that it's big and it's nasty and it's right under the water. You can't see it, but it's there. And that's what that was like. But, I do stuff like that. I met Lawrence, kind of as research for this book, but just as research in general, because like I said, I was working on my 13th novel. So 12 times before I had written about killers, and I had never met one before. And I thought, this is what I need to do. And I live my work, on my honeymoon, I dragged my husband to a bunch of real life murder sites because I wanted to experience those places and try to visualize the experience of not only the killer but the victim, and I wanted to be there. I wanted to feel the atmosphere and that kind of thing, and this is what I do. A couple of months ago I went and I don't have any more time to go into this. I have 1 minute left, but I went and I visited Lithgow Maximum Security Prison, which is in the Blue Mountains, and I took a tour through there. This is what I do. crime is my life, and I hope that you join me not only for this novel, but for all of my novels and for the weird and wonderful and crazy stuff I plan to do for research in the future. So now I'm seeing questions here. Ken Malpass is asking about Lawrence and says, has he been executed yet? He actually died of old age inside the prison. He died just in December, and his partner Roy died in February, I believe. So they were kind of like an old married couple. They died only a couple of months apart, but Lawrence had been in prison for 38 years, and before he was arrested for these murders, he had been in prison, longer than he had been out in his life. He was a career criminal, as most serial killers are, and I'm glad that he's dead. I'm not sure whether or not he deserved to die the peaceful death that he did in prison, but the world is definitely a better place without him, however it is that he died. So I've got, how did you start writing with James Patterson? Yes, that question from earlier. So Jim and I have written 7 novels together. One of them is a novella, so 6.5. So I went to a cocktail party. I was invited to a cocktail party that Jim was hosting here in Sydney. That was in 2015. And I just wanted to have like a big fan moment with him. So I went up to him and I said, oh my God, I've been reading your books since I was a little kid. I read Kiss the Girls when I was 12 and I absolutely loved it. And I think that that's maybe part of the reason why I write crime. And he was like, wow, that's really inappropriate. What was your mum doing while you were, reading my books? And I was like, so don't get started, because I have a really weird, messed up childhood story. So I didn't say that, but you know what I mean? I was like, I don't want to get into that with you. I'm trying to have this nice celebrity moment. So we got on really well. And then my publisher put a book of mine in a gift pack for him to take home to Florida. And he read my first novel, Hades, on the plane. And he was like, oh, I want to work with this girl. She's good. And he called me up and asked if I would work with him. And that's what we do. He's a great guy. He's kind of like an uncle. I call him up and there's a lot of talk on the phone, and sometimes we get into argy-bargy about different characters, and I don't want to kill this person off, and I don't want to go, and that kind of thing. It's a great relationship. So I'd love it if you checked out those books as well. Peter Maitland says, how do you get into visiting jails, talking to police, seeing real crime scenes for a book? Is it a who you know situation? Yeah, some of it is. If you want to go and visit real life murder sites, you can easily do that. There were cases that I was interested in. Like, for example, there's an uncaught serial killer on Long Island. So when we were heading up, north on our honeymoon, I said I want to go there because and I looked at the GPS locations where these bodies were found, and they're found by the side of the highway, and I wanted to know how far that was from the local town and what it felt like, and how quickly you can dump a body out of a car, for example, into that undergrowth. So I just found that and I went there. In terms of visiting in visiting Lithgow, that was definitely a who you know type of situation. I asked a contact of mine, and I'm sure I only got to go in there because I'm a crime writer, and they took me all around the prison. It was really great. It was an all-access visit. It was really scary, though, really scary, and none of the inmates had been told that I was coming, so that nobody staged anything, I think, because they were very surprised to see me there, and all of the staff had been alerted that I was coming through and to make sure that nothing happened. The governor of the prison who is like the warden, had been punched in the face the day before. So, like the night before I go to visit this prison, my contact says to me, "Oh yeah, and some inmate just like tried to punch the governor, like through the bars, took a smack at her, and like it glanced off her face." I was like, "Oh great, this is awesome." So Safi Osa says, "What were your first steps in terms of study career pathway in becoming a writer?" My mother lovingly, but very harshly, when I was a kid, said to me, writers don't make any money. And if you want to be a writer, it can be your side hustle. And I had another writer, Gary Crew. I studied under Gary Crew, who's a very successful children's author in Australia. When I was studying under him, he said, you give up your day job to be a writer when your writing starts making more money than your day job. You know what I mean? So for me, it was always going to be my side hustle. So when I went to university, I studied to be a high school teacher, because I figured that's a job that pays and that's a job that is secure. It was a terrible fit for me because I'm very sensitive, and when anyone's mean to me, I cry. When I was training to be a high school teacher, I took some work as a supply, like as a relief teacher. And teenage boys would go, "Oh, this is stupid. You're a stupid teacher." And I'd be like, "Oh, excuse me. Just gonna go outside for a minute." So I tried that out as a job, and I also tried out being in the military. I was in the military I was in the Navy for 2 years. That was with all the crying. That was also a terrible job choice for me. I did study creative writing though, because I said to my mum when I was 16, I want to leave high school and become a famous author. That's when she said, authors don't make any money. But she said, if you like it that much, I will get you into some classes. And I took TAFE classes at night in creative writing when I was 16. So when I was doing my high school teaching degree, I took my electives in that degree and I did them in creative writing. And then I did my honours in creative writing because I had a teaching job, so I did that part-time. And then I got my master's in writing, editing and publishing at UQ because I figured that I would try to get a job in a publishing house as an editor or something, and I would sneak in the back way to getting published. And luckily I didn't need to do that. I got published. But when I was published for the first time, I was teaching at the University of Notre Dame in Sydney. And I was teaching writing because I just did everything around writing that I could until I could get into the centre. So yes, yeah. So I'm running out of time here to answer questions. I've got, what's your advice for aspiring authors wanting to be traditionally published? Oh my God, I have so much advice. Learn your craft, get some kind of advice on writing, whether you take a TAFE course or you do, I have a write club on Wednesdays on my Facebook page, on Facebook Live, where we all write together and then you ask me any kind of questions you want for a half an hour. So, I'm giving out free writing advice. I'm sure there are other people who are doing it. So study your craft. You don't have to go and do a $23,000 degree in it. You can if you want, but you don't have to. Study your craft, write more than one book, okay? So don't write a book and then if you get rejected and, the book fails or whatever, don't, curl up in a ball and cry and then never try again. Say to yourself, I'm going to write a book every year until I get through, or I'm going to write a book every 6 months until I get through. My third piece of advice is you need to get an agent, because it doesn't matter how good your book is. If it goes into the slush pile, it won't be taken as seriously as it will be by an agent, because an agent, is trying to get you published so they can get part of your commission. They're trying to grow you as a tiny little sprout in the dirt and grow you into a tree. It's in an agent's, prerogative to do that. And an agent is going to be getting a fragment of what the big publishing houses are getting in terms of submissions, because some of those big houses are getting 5,000, 7,000 submissions a year, whereas each individual agent is only getting, a fragment of that. And so the odds are just better. So, okay, we might have to go to last question. And I've got one question here, which is from Tegan Brown. It says, hello, what is the book you're most proud of writing? I think it's Gathering Dark. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here trying to. I'm proud of all of my works. But Gathering Dark was really difficult to write because, towards the end of that book, I was pregnant with my daughter, Violet. And I was editing that book while she was a newborn, and so many difficult and hard, experiences went into that novel. And I had to chuck 30,000 words of the novel away because I got like baby brain, and they were terrible words. So the whole experience of trying to write with a baby and trying to write pregnant was difficult for me, and I got this book out of it, and everybody is really, really enjoying it. It's had 3 reprints in the middle of a global pandemic, so it's going absolutely gangbusters even in this crazy world we're living in. And so yeah, I'm really, really proud of it, and it's a hell of a ride. It's a fun book. It was fun, hard but fun to write. And people are having so much fun with those characters. So thank you very, very much, everyone, for joining me. And thank you, Dymocks, for hosting me. And please enjoy the work. And everyone have a great night. See you later.